Today I'm drilling backhands and focusing on patience and paddle preparation. I covered forehands in a previous video. I'll put a link to that video in the description box below. Today I'm not going to cover everything I covered in that forehand video. Go watch that video to get all those details that I don't cover today. Alright, so as I did in that forehand video, I'm going to let this ball bounce twice. Practice patience and practice letting this ball come to me, so in a game I don't feel like I have to run forward on every ball and chase every ball down. I want to let this ball come to me. I want this ball to get low, so I'm trying to practice being low here. So first off, like I did in that forehand video, I want to practice getting my paddle back and prepped. By the time that first ball bounces, which is what I would do in a live game, by the time that ball bounces, I want to have my paddle fully prepped on the forehand and the backhand side. So on that first bounce, I want to be back and prepared. If that ball gets here quicker than I think it was going to, I'm already prepared. I'm in good shape. I can just swing earlier than I anticipated. If it gets here later than I thought it was going to get here, I just hang out in this prepared position for a little bit longer. So I'm starting with this paddle up around my shoulder, which I do for all of my backhand drives. Common starting point. If my starting point's always the same, this starts to feel very familiar, and my swing forward is much more consistent. Having this up around my shoulder, give me that pendulum swing. Missed that one badly. Gravity helps me get this paddle going, and so some people are weaker on their backhand side. If you'll start higher, gravity will help you get this paddle going faster, and you don't have to muscle this as much versus me starting with this paddle down around my waist or down around my knees. I don't have that gravity assist to get my paddle going. So the first thing I want to do in this drill, practice getting my paddle prepared early up around that shoulder, ideally by the same time that that ball bounces. I need to be prepared, or earlier if I can, but minimally I want to be prepared, have my paddle prepped and ready to go. I missed that one. By the time that that ball has its first bounce. So this is part of the patience. I'm trying to get prepared, feel comfortable hanging out with my paddle prepared, and over the course of time, this will feel more and more natural to get prepared that early. Letting this ball come to me, focusing on this ball all the way in. Get that paddle back and prepared by the time that ball bounces. All right, so now that we're a little bit familiar with being prepared by the time that ball bounces, then the second part of this is I have to move. So I've already prepared, so now I'm fully focused on this ball, trying to get my body in the position where I want it to be relative to this ball. So if this ball is going to be short, I've got to move forward. Further deep, I've got to move backwards. So I'll move forward a little bit here. I'll get set up. I can tell, oh, this ball is going to be further back than I need it to be. So part two then, I hit that off the first bounce, is I want to be thinking that I'm going to move. After I'm fully prepared, I'm just focusing on this ball, looking for holes in the ball, see if it has any spin on it, trying to tell where it's going to crest and come down. And so part two then is after I've prepared, I want to be moving my feet, staying light on my feet so I can hit this ball well. I've got to move. This ball is going to go where it's going to go. So it's really my job then, after I get my paddle prepped, all of my focus is on moving, getting my body to where it needs to be. If I've already got my homework done, which is my preparation, my paddle prep, if I've got that homework done, then it frees me up, my focus and my attention, to be able to move to where I need to move to have the best possible chance to hit that ball well. Another part of this drill is I'm trying to let this ball come down low. So practice is part of it, patience is part of it. But I also want to hit this ball low because that's a little bit tougher to do. And so then I'm training my body to get down for every shot so I can get my paddle underneath this ball. If I stay too vertical, so if I were stand up like this, it's very difficult to get under that ball, and a lot of those will go into the net. So if I'm drilling and practicing, I want to practice things that sometimes are a little bit more difficult, meaning that this ball is intentionally lower. I'm letting it come close down to the floor. So I've got to get lower to be able to get under this ball and have a higher chance for this ball going well over the net. I don't want to be standing too vertical. If I get low, I want to have my feet a little bit further apart. So if my feet are together, it's very difficult to get low and to move at that last moment if I need to move. So I want my feet a little bit further apart as I get low and not trying to have my feet together. That just makes it more difficult to get low. Just practicing patience here, letting this ball come to me, not feeling that I have to move forward on every ball to run this down. Letting this ball get low, getting prepped on that first bounce, and then all my attention is on focus, and focus is on getting where I need to be so I can hit this ball well. Still getting my paddle prepped around my shoulder. All right, so I'll talk through this. First bounce prep, second bounce prep, and then move, prep, and then move. I'm gonna prep, and then move, prep, and then move, keeping my feet going, prep, and then move, prep. So that's really a lot of what this drill is about. Part of the drill is about turning the machine off. So that's what part of this drill is about, is having patience to let that ball come to me. I don't want to feel like I have to run forward to all of those balls and hit them as soon as I can, because now the height is varying on where I'm hitting those balls. If I will hit the ball on my terms, meaning that I want to be positioned relative to where I can hit the ball where I want to hit it. So for these, I was trying to hit that ball very low off the floor, getting practice getting down, getting practice moving to where I need to be. So that ball is almost always, more often than not, in the position that I want to hit it. I want to hit the ball on my terms, not depending on how somebody hit that ball to me and trying to hit it at its high point. So by the time that ball bounces the first time, we want to have this paddle back and fully prepped. And then we're going to let that ball bounce a second time. Be patient. We're going to get low, and we're going to focus on that ball and move after we've prepared. So I prepare, and then if I need to move, I move to get to where I need to be. All the other mechanics that I've talked about in all of my other videos on hitting backhands are essentially the same. Just trying to get this paddle prepped by the time that ball bounces the first time, trying to be patient and move to get where I need to be. All the other mechanics are the same, so I want to inhale when I see my opponent hit this ball. I want to exhale as I hit, and that exhale hopefully finishes about the time that ball lands on the other side. If I exhale well, it will help me stay relaxed, and so that's a good thing to do. I want my paddle to continue on toward that target after I contact the ball. So I want to follow through that chases that ball as it goes away, chases it toward the target that I want to hit. Sorry, I want to get that one out of the way. So my paddle wants to continue on to that target. I do not want to stop this paddle short. I want to have that paddle keep going in the direction that I'm swinging. Some people may tell you you don't need that big of a follow through, and you don't unless you want to be consistent. And if you want to be consistent, that paddle needs to continue chasing that ball as it goes away. I want my arm fully extended by the time I hit this ball. So in this prepared position, my arm is obviously bent. By the time my paddle gets there to hit that ball, centrifugal force has pulled my arm straight. If my arm is straight every time I hit that ball, then the sweet spot of that paddle is the same distance away from my shoulder every time. And so if that's true, then my consistency goes up because that sweet spot of that paddle is getting to be familiar in its location. So I want to swing with a straight arm by the time I contact that ball. Focusing on this ball as it comes in, looking for holes in the ball. If I can see which way the ball is spinning, I can react and get prepared before that ball bounces. rather than wait and see if it kicks after it bounces. So I'm looking at the ball, trying to focus on this ball all the way in. Again, I'm letting this ball come down low, practicing getting low, so I'm not so vertical that I can't get under that ball. I want to be low, my feet apart. Very difficult to get under this ball if my feet are close together. So physically a little bit more taxing. But if we'll do this and drill this, we'll build up that strength. And then we can do this while we're playing with less trouble. So this drill, again, we're practicing patience, trying to get my paddle prepped by the time that first ball bounces. And then I'm thinking about moving after I'm prepped. I want to move. Now I don't have my left hand to put out in front of this ball to judge where this ball needs to be or where I need to be. So what I'm using is my front leg here as a reference point, specifically my knee on that front leg, trying to get the ball into this ideal hitting spot relative to where my right knee is. And I'm using that as a guide because I don't have my non-paddle hand to tell me where that ball is anymore. So my brain doesn't get quite the same information. Also, I want to keep my left hand on the back of this paddle as I swing forward. And I realize for most of this video, I probably have not been doing that because I've been focused on whatever I'm talking about. And whenever I'm talking, the rest of my mechanics suffer probably quite a bit because I'm not focused on them as much. But if I will bring my non-paddle hand forward with this paddle as I swing, my brain at least gets information on where this paddle is in space, and then I can hit this ball better than if I just leave or separate my arms like this. They do that in tennis, but they do it more for power than they do for anything else. So if I will bring my non-paddle hand forward with this paddle, gives me some shoulder rotation. It's telling my brain where this paddle is in space. Everything tends to be a little bit more consistent. And again, I probably haven't been doing that for much of this video because my brain can only focus on one thing at a time, whatever I'm talking about. Still trying to let this ball get low. So try and bring this non-paddle hand forward. I'm not really swinging it two-handed. I'm not gripping this and trying to get two-handed power out of it. Just trying to get my brain to understand where this paddle is because I have two hands on this paddle. And in general, my non-paddle hand separates from the paddle just before I hit that ball. But I've got information all the way up to that contact point about where that paddle is. The longer I can leave that left hand, my non-paddle hand, on the back of that paddle, the longer my brain gets information about where that paddle is in space. Now that we've practiced being patient, letting that ball come to us, getting our paddle prepped early, can we take all of what we just learned and do that on a one bouncer, on a ball that would be more game-like? So I'm going to try and get the paddle prepped. By the time that ball bounces, I'm going to try and let this ball come down off of its crest, come down around my knee, because if I'm vertical like this, these balls aren't as low. That sweet spot of my paddle's down around my knee. So then the question is, can I get prepared by the time this ball bounces? Be patient, let that ball come to me. Let this ball come down around my knee, where that sweet spot of my paddle is, and do everything else. I'm going to exhale. Paddle is going to continue on in the direction of the target. Going to look for holes in the ball. So this is more game-like. So hopefully, so that ball is a little bit shorter. Hopefully then we take all of what we just learned in that drill, and now we go drill the same thing on a one hopper, one bouncer, meaning that I'm going to get prepped by the time this ball bounces. After I'm prepped and I move, so I'm going to prep and then move if I need to, prep, and then move if I need to, prep, and then move, prep. I didn't move on that one at all. But let's take what we learned and see if we can apply that in a more game-like situation. Just gonna breathe. So that's it for today. I'm gonna stand here and just hit the rest of these balls that are in the machine. Feel free to hang around if you want or not. Gonna get prepped, swing toward the target, prepped, swing toward the target, prepped, swing. I'm letting this ball come toward me. Gonna get prepped and swing, light on my feet, breathing while I'm doing this, inhaling when that ball comes out. No rotation on that ball, meaning that I hit it well, I hit straight through it. Not trying to spin any of these. Gonna get prepped. Let this ball come down to my knee. Prepped, ball to my knee. Prepped by the time that ball bounces. I don't want to prep late. I want the swing to be in two parts. First part is I get prepped and stationary as far as my prep goes. Second part is swinging forward, trying to get that ball to go where I want it to go.